Yeah.
Hello, fellow Losters. Welcome to the next episode of LOL of Literature. And today we have with us Mr. Sanjay Chandra. He is an author who has transitioned from writing a memoir to writing fiction. And to know a little bit more about him, I would request Ms. Jayanti to give the introduction.
Oh, yes. Born in 1959, Mr. Sanjay Chandra has a storyteller within him. Every communication in his life was a story in itself. He has 2 books to his credit: The Gymnast, published recently, and The Life and the Times of a Common Man, published in 2019. The Gymnast is a contemporary fiction, and The Life and the Times of a Common Man is a memoir. Interestingly, both the books have common theme: dream with your eyes open and pursue your dreams passionately. Sanjay now sees stories all around him. Writing has become a passion, and he has finally become a storyteller. He is also a traveler, a book lover, and an amateur photographer. He lives in Gurgaon with his family. Sanjay loves to interact with readers through his website. It's www.authorsanjaychandra.com and all social media handles. Welcome, Mr. Sanjay Chandra, to LOL.
Thank you. Thank you so very much, Jayanti, for that wonderful introduction. And thank you, Dhanya, for giving me this opportunity to be on the show. And it's a pleasure. It's my pleasure to be here sitting with you this afternoon, talking about books. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for gracing us with your presence. And let's jump right in. And we would like to know how different was writing fiction from writing a memoir film?
Oh.
Or how similar?
As I was telling someone just the other day, I consider myself to be a people's person. A substantial part of my professional life, I was heading teams of people. And when you are heading teams of people, right since the age of, I think when I was 23, that was my first posting. And once you are heading people, then you have to be conscious of each and every nuances of their body language, what they are talking about, what they are thinking. In fact, you have to think like them so that you can take care of them. And so to that extent, it was easy for me. In fact, it was my mother who asked me that, how did you write those dialogues? How did you know that what they are going to speak? And so that's what I told her, that yes, that's how I perceived or imagined. But having said that, I felt that when I was writing my memoirs way back in 2019, 2018, 2019, those were anecdotes from my own life. So those were incidents, live incidents, which I had gone through or I had witnessed during my life. So to that extent, it was easier. But the difficult part there was that I would not know. See, every life has both positives and negatives. There you have your weaknesses, and in your younger days, you do indulge in certain vices also, I would say. And it was difficult for me to see what to write and what not to write. So that was the difficult part of it. So when I started writing my next book, in fact, there are, as Jayanti also mentioned in my introduction, there are stories all around us. Each incident, each event has the potential to be a story. Now, I have traveled quite extensively. I've traveled about 40 odd countries, and any city of India or any city, major city of globally, you go, you find these street performers performing by the roadside. And what are they doing? They are just trying to earn that little extra money honestly for their sustenance. And we have become so immune to their presence because, any traffic light you would stop, you would find those children doing, someone doing trapeze, someone doing those cartwheels and tightrope walk, someone singing, someone playing a flute or any musical instrument.
Dholak. Yeah.
Dholak. Oh, exactly. Yeah, you're very correct. So you've become so immune to their presence that you do not even think about it. And it set me thinking that these children show immense talent. What if someone comes in their life, something happens in their lives, that they are able to pursue this talent and attain some perfection in that, or attain glory in that, whatever they have chosen. But then, that was the difficult part was, that it was not just a layer or a linear story. Every generation has to contribute for the next generation to improve. So that's how I started, and I thought about it. I realized, from my own experience, I said, okay, the first generation that went into doing service was my grandfather, and then he gave a better life to my parents' generation, and then my parents gave a better life to our generation, and we thought that we would give a much better lives to our children. So that it takes 4 generations, and so I thought about writing about 4 generations. So there are backstories which start somewhere around 1955, when the grandparents are more of bonded laborers in a village it's not even a village at that time. They are asked to go and cultivate the lands of the zamindar somewhere in the wilderness by the side of the river Ganges. And so they are newly married, they go there. And then they want their son to study so that he can become a bada sahab. That was the time when parents wanted their children to become bada sahabs, so work in the government department, bada sahab, but he does not want to study. There will always be a generation where the child would not want to study. And then he has his own son, that father has his own son, and then those, that son or the third generation, they get into, they want to study and they can't because there are repeated floods in that area. So there are, these different layers in that story, multiple layers. It's a back generation or the generational problem, the labor problem, and then they are forced to migrate. So there's a migration issue. They are forced to live in jhuggies, and so that's how the story unfolds.
If I may interrupt, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Mr. Chandra. If I may interrupt, have you done any research on this particular community? How much you did? How deep you went in the research part of it? How you got prepared? You got prepared for the book, because you're writing about one particular, nomadic life they lead, and of course, to some extent, we all can research online these days, but you're talking about generations that you're going to write, right? So did you do lots of research, and how much you did?
My research was not in terms of reading books or reading literature. Okay. My research came out of my own experiences of the back generations. That was one. Okay, and from the ever omnipresent Google.
Okay.
So yes, I did research. I did research about there are incidents in the book which actually happened, may not have happened in the same timeline, like construction of a bridge across Ganges and those floods and creation of dams, etc. And so that was the research, and rest all, and more particularly because since I am not a gymnast, so
that's why I asked you that question.
Yeah, so I had to read a bit. I did read a bit about what all is required in gymnastics, how a training is done in gymnastics, but end of the day, I have taken liberties. It may not be a factually accurate account of the particular sport or a particular profession, because I was creating a fiction, and through that fiction I was wanting to convey a certain message about dreams. where everyone has dreams, and realization of those or actualization of those dreams. That's what I want to talk about. So there would be inaccuracies, but then yes, I did my research, and it was mostly through Google.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. Mm.
Because
So,
while reading the book, I could realize that there was research done on even the Commonwealth. Am I not audible?
Now it's
Now we can hear me. I
mm.
think now am I audible?
Yeah.
So I was just saying there have been accounts about the Commonwealth Games of India and the future Olympics which are going to happen in other countries that you have mentioned in the book. So that must have had some research, background. You must have gone a little bit into it, and at least you should have researched about what are the games that are conducted, and I don't know how long the duration of the actual games. Because when it's a gymnast, you will have to know how long the performer is going to perform and what are all the training, or who are all the trainers who are known in India, or like where do people go to train, all that, right?
So that's a fictional account. See, that's a fictional account. There are academies available, but I did not want to get into those academies. I wanted to show two trainers who themselves had gone up to the state level gymnastics, but then could not pursue further because of financial constraints, financial crunch. So that I wanted those to be the support system for this little girl, that they have set up their own academy, and they obviously they are not rich or anything, so they do not have those world class equipment, and so that's why they are approaching different people. They are approaching the government, they are approaching the school, even the school authorities, to give them a bigger space. So it's not based on any real life academy in India. It's a fictional setting, I would say. It's a fictional setting for that academy.
Any fiction?
Yeah, pardon. Yeah, please continue. Yeah.
No, I'm sorry to interrupt. You can continue, please.
No, that's what I said. So that's how it has been created. And when you said about those future games, like for example, there are those games held in Jaipur. Now that timeline is not yet finalized. So I just came up with Jaipur. Because it's not finalized where those will be held. So I just came up with Jaipur. Rest all mostly the international games, our venues are decided much in advance, so they are known where they are going to be conducted. So that I researched, and bit of when the protagonist goes around London, bus hopping, etc. So those are my experiences.
Okay. So this when was this book published, and how are the readers receiving it? Are you taking the books to the academies, the gymnastic academies, and the sports academies? That's where this book will be really appreciated, isn't it? Are you doing anything about that?
The book has been only recently published. It has come out only about a couple of weeks back. So these are early days.
Okay.
But yes, quite a few readers have read the book. They have liked it. The storytelling and the story part of it, they have liked it. And so these are early days. I am planning a set of a series of book events across literature clubs, across colleges, I would say. I would not limit the readership of the book to only the sports academies or the sports itself. Sports was a coincidence. In the sense that because since the girl is doing trapeze, so that's how she is becoming a gymnast. End of the day, what I wanted to convey was, which I have conveyed in my first book also, that there is no age, there is no gender, there is no caste to dreams. And dreams are important. Whatever you do, whatever profession you take up, you should do it passionately. And success is bound to be yours. That's what I wanted to convey. So I would not say that it has a limited readership, or it is only for a limited set of people.
Understood.
It is for everyone.
Yeah, true. But I'm really curious. Has any sports person read it, or a gymnast related person? In future, you let us know. if there is a review by such a person, because
Certainly.
I'll be interested in. Thank you.
Certainly. Thank you. Yeah.
So, how did you go about the publishing journey? Like, did you have to, shell out your sample chapters? Did you have to start writing a synopsis? And how many publishers did you send to? And how was the rejection? What did you face in that journey?
Any first time writer, or I would say even a second book writer also, it is difficult. It is difficult in this industry to get a foothold. Like possibly it would be difficult in any industry. As I keep saying that even an Amish became an Amish after I think after he had written about 5 or 6 books. So it is difficult. For the Gymnast also. In fact, the first draft of this book I had completed way back. If I take you through the entire process that I went through, I had written the first draft of this. The first manuscript I had completed in 2019 itself. Now, the first editor or the critiques have been my wife and my 2 daughters. And it was a linear narration at that point of time. I mean, they felt that, it was just a longish story. There were no dialogues in that. But of course, I mean, very limited dialogues. I would say very limited dialogues. And so, thereafter, I did a lot of iterations in that, a lot of changes in that. And a number of drafts were created before they were satisfied. Now, once they were satisfied over the next 9 or 10 months, then first of all, I sent it across to all the established publishers. And many of the publishers were kind enough to send me that rejection slip, saying rejection mail, I would say, that you would not like to take it up. We cannot take it up at this point of time.
Yes.
But then, yeah, and some did not even respond.
That's very natural.
It was around that time that I came across the concept of a literary agent. And I read an article in a book, in a magazine, where they had featured about, I think, 5 or 6 top literary agents in India. So this was a concept which was new to me. So what I did was the same thing. I created a synopsis and I created those, first 2 or 3 chapters. So I sent across to these 5 or 6 people also, and it was my literary agent. The agency is known as First Forays Literary Agency, headed by Lalita Ravindran. So yeah. She called me up. In fact, she called me up after she had read it, and she said she sounded very excited. She said, "Sanjay, it's a wonderful story. You send me the complete manuscript. I'll push it." And there was another literary agent also. He said that he was busy at that point of time. If over the next 6 months, if I am not able to find a publisher, then I could again approach him. So and one literary agent said that they are not taking contemporary fiction at this point of time. Another literary agent also said something similar. So I sent it to Lalita. Now, my manuscript went through again an entire reading by Lalita, and she came back to me. She said what she wanted me to do. My initial book was manuscript was, I think, about 72 or 73,000 words. She said she wanted to be brought down to 60,000 words. I again went through the entire process, and I could still, I felt 64, 65,000 words, which is the current word count. I limited it to that and sent it. Then she sent it across to several publishers. Eventually, Garuda Prakashan, they picked up the book. They were equally excited. They said that we want to take it up. And, but then, it's not a self-published book, but then they have now a hybrid model, because during the COVID, the publishing industry has taken a big hit. So they said that I will have to pre-order 400 copies at 50% of the MRP. So yes, my expenses started then and there. And their editorial team went through another 3 rounds of editing. And then the final typeset manuscript also went through another 2 rounds of editing. So that is the kind of editing that it has gone through, and then come out. And then by that time, there was a shortage of paper in the industry, imported paper in the industry. So it took another 4 or 5 months. And that's how, I mean, otherwise it should have come out almost 6 or 7 months earlier, but that's how it came out only in July. So yes, it's a long process. It's a tedious process, and but I am happy that I went through a traditional publishing, because what happens is, in a traditional publishing, so many people read it, so many editorial teams read it, that possibly you are making the book a little more perfect for the reader.
Yeah.
So in a way, that's good, because in a self-published book, right, like in my first book, which was a self-published book, I was also in a hurry. I wanted to hold the book in my hands, and I wanted to, the readers to read that book. So I was in a hurry. So I took a package of Notion Press and published that through through that. I was not much worried about the editing part of it, because since the editing and the grammar, etc., had been taken care of by my wife and by my daughter. They had done that, so it was practically a ready manuscript. But then still, had there been an editorial input from the publisher also, possibly it would also have become more readable.
So how was it? How was it to hold the first copy? Because you were so eager to get it. I mean, natural, right, for anyone. So how was it?
When I got my first copy, yes, I was excited, particularly for my first book. Second book, yeah, excitement was there, but by the time
I was asking only for the first book. It's always the
no,
first book.
it was wonderful. I picked it up, I smelt it. I had the smell of the paper. So that was yeah, it was a wonderful feeling. It was a wonderful feeling. I loved it.
So how was that book received by the readers?
Once again, see, the first book and those also memoirs, I would still say that I sold about, I think, 550 or 600 odd copies.
Not bad.
Not bad, but not enough to sustain or to do the expenses that I incurred in that. But yes, there were some very nice reviews to that book. Somebody from Siliguri, apart from my family and friends, they loved it. I mean, my family and friends, obviously, they loved it. But then I often, once you asked me that question, it came to me. Somebody from Siliguri, he sent me a message. He said, "Sir, your book was gifted to me on my birthday by my uncle, and I have read it."
Oh,
and so he gave his own review. So that is something which stuck in my mind, that yes, possibly, and that's what I wanted. He was a youngster. He was, I think, 20, 21 years old. So I felt that, yeah. So
how did the social media help you? I mean, how did you promote your book?
The book?
Yes.
I did a mix of social media and a few of those PR people. I use them also, but mostly social media. And social media would help you only to the extent that you are known. People know at least, that there is a Sanjay Chandra and there is a book. But then the reach, see, the thing is, reading as a habit is now going down, and that is a challenge. I started reading when I was maybe about 6, 7 years old, and maybe just the comic series or something. But then, yeah, the reading started coming in. But reading as a habit is going down, which is unfortunate and which is not right for, I would say, for the evolution of the society, because reading expands your imagination. Reading evolves you into, I would say that reading even helps you in your professional life as well, how to tackle situations, how to handle situations. So reading as a habit, I mean, it's very important for us as authors, or for all of us who are related to this industry, to inculcate that habit. And so that's why, I keep posting my reviews, etc., because at least if I am able to book reviews, whatever books I read, I post a review, so that, and that's why I said that I would love to go to colleges. I would love to talk to these students, because these young students, they ask you very, very searching questions, and which really helps. So like for my first book also, I went to colleges in Jaipur, Chandigarh, Ludhiana, and interacting with them is always a pleasure, and it gives you a different perspective. So social media helps, but I would say not. Social media would not be the be all and end all.
Mhm.
It will have to be clubbed with the other traditional means of publicity, like offline display, etc. But unfortunately, everything has a price to it, and which is where, so as my wife would say, that's it's an expensive hobby. But I don't consider this as a hobby. I would say now it is a
Expensive.
passion.
Expensive.
I think we can log off and log in back again because there's just 5 minutes left in the meeting.
Sure.
I'll
Yeah.
just send you guys a link. You can just add this.
Okay. So you are sending.
So we wanted to ask you, because you've been active in Facebook with your book club and all that. So how has being a part of a book club helped you in promoting your book, or has it shown any difference in your sales, or has it, literally translated to money at all?
Mm. Mm.
As I said, that so far as the Gymnast is concerned, it is too early. It is too early because since it has come out just about a couple of weeks back. But I would say, since I am a part of several book clubs, the Pioneer Book Lovers Club was something which was initiated by me and a few others. That was, at that point of time, it was a community book club, the community where we are living. And then we expanded it to the Facebook also, and then opened it to other authors and other readers as well. And
So
then
is this community in Kolkata?
no, this is in Gurgaon.
Gurgaon. Okay, sure.
This is in Gurgaon, yeah.
Okay.
So and simultaneously, I joined a number of book clubs, and virtually, I would say virtually. And so it has helped me connect with the readers. It has helped me connect with other authors as well. So that is, I do hope, because it came to me. It said, I said, once I am connected to the authors, how do authors support other authors? Like one is, you buy my book and I buy your book, but that's not the end of it. End of the day, it's something like saying that you give a hungry person fish, you feed him for a day, but you teach him to fish, you feed him for life. So the help should come, or would come, in the sense of that, if I am an author, and if Dhanya is an author, or Jayanti is an author, if I open my network to you, or you open your network to me, then it's a help. And which is what I am trying to work on. It has helped me connect with a lot of people. It has helped me connect with the people who are organizers of literary clubs, literature clubs. So in a way, I would say that yes, in the long run, maybe come down the line, a month down the line, 2 months down the line, it should help in building up traction for the book, and I should be able to help build traction for the other authors. Like I started an author show myself, where we have had, you had Dr. Ranjani. She was the first author on our show, and then Lata Gwalani, and so many others, Pradeep Roy, so many others have come thereafter. So it should help, and but time only will be able to say. And it's early days. It's early days so far as the Gymnast is concerned.
So, because see, I would like to know, usually what happens when people write about sports fiction is that they usually write about a person who has actually done that in life. They usually write about someone who, it will usually be a rags to riches story, but it will be based on the story of a particular person who has achieved success. But making it into a fiction, do you think it adds more value to it, or do you think it is listening? It is maybe for a reader, they might have taken more inspiration if it was a real story. Do you think that it is going to affect the reader?
See, there are, particularly in our country, and not only in our country, even in the many of the underdeveloped countries, there are real life rags to riches stories, uh, like our own, I would say, like Deepa Karmakar, Hima Das, and there are so many others who have done just that. They came from a background which was, I would say, not privileged, and yet they were able to achieve what they have achieved. And like, say, let's say those, from the African continent, there have been several runners and athletes who have done wonders. So there are rags to riches stories, but I would not say that building up on these the stories can be inspired by someone's life,
Mm.
but the stories need not be somebody else's life. It can be a purely fictional character. The concept can be taken from a real life character. Like in my case, as I said, that possibly I was inspired by, because it was around that time that Deepa Karmakar had performed that Prodonova and everything in gymnastics. She had done that Prodonova, and so that's so it was inspired because she also came from a different background, from a not so privileged background. But then, yes, no, I would say my story is my story. I mean, it's not anybody else's story, and it does not mirror anybody. It does not purport or claim to mirror anybody else's story. The background of this protagonist is totally hers, and it's a mix of coming from a different background and moving on, etc. So I would not agree, or say, I would say that stories can be inspired. All the stories would be inspired by real life incidents, real life events. As Jayanti said right in the very beginning, there are stories all around us, and you just have to catch them and build them into a relatable story for the reader to read and to reader to enjoy.
Okay. So we'll just ask one question and then we'll go to the next segment of this episode. The last question that I would like to ask you is, what happens usually when you do fiction is that there is a point where you get too involved in the story that you live the story. And because your story runs through 4 different generations, you will have to have gone into the minds of so many people from different generations. Was there a time that you felt like you were living that life, or maybe your life was taking a toll because of that, or maybe you just weren't able to come out of that character while you were writing the book?
You are absolutely right, to the extent that, yes, when I am sitting in front of my computer and when I am writing that, I am visualizing a certain character, I am visualizing a certain event or a certain incident in that character's life, and so I am writing. I get involved in that character at that point of time. But then, yes, maybe it has been my professional experience that comes to the fore, that I would come out of it once I have shut down my computer. But every time there are passages in the book, every time that I read those passages, it sends it gives me goosebumps, and sometimes I have even cried, like when she wins and there is not even a single eye which does not have tears. And so I also cried, or I also cry even now also. If I would read it again, possibly I would again cry there. So yes, you have to live those lives. You have to feel those lives, since it has to come from your heart. It cannot be something contrived. It has to come from your heart. And so words, English is not my first language. And so when English is not my first language, many days it would so happen that I am not able to get a particular word for a certain particular word. And so I would not write, I would sit staring. And then, then I would maybe come out and ask my wife or my daughter that what is the word for this? But then, yes, I interviewed another author, and that another author, she told me, she said what she does is that she writes, if the word comes to her in Hindi, she just writes that Hindi word in Hindi word and moves on. And then she would go back, when reading it again, then she would try to find out what the exact word should be in English for that. So, but then for me, yes, I mean, it could so happen that I would continue to stare at the screen looking for that word, and then move on only after I had, uh, pinpointed that word, or I had written down that word. So, but yes, coming back to your original question, yes, you have to be, or I as an author have to be invested when I'm writing about a certain incident or event, or writing about a character, into that character, and get into the role of that character to write that. So I do that.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm.
So when you told this answer, I was reminded of an answer Ms. Jayanti had given when her first book was published, and someone had asked her. I mean, her first book in English, because she was a Tamil.
Who
She
was
was
that?
a Ms. Jayanti, her first English book was published a few years ago.
Yeah.
This was her first English book. She had written almost 40, 50 books in Tamil before that. But this was her
Okay.
first book, and someone asked her, in what language do you think, like, because you've been a Tamil author for so long, what language do you think, and when you write, does that language affects you writing in English? And I don't know, for some reason, we both answered at the same time. We said we think in scenes. We don't think in a language. It's just the scene that forms inside us. It's not the
Yeah, that's,
word that
yeah,
comes. So
yeah,
it's really different to think in a particular language. Though we
yeah,
are connected more to our whatever our first language is, or whatever our mother tongue is, it's
right.
still the scene. So like because your answer just reminded me of that incident that we had, and we both
Not
answered
just
Yeah.
that
that,
at the exact
not
same
just
Well,
moment.
that, if at all I really think in words, it's most of the times in English. I've
Yeah.
noticed, even when I was writing in my mother tongue, I
okay.
used to think in English. Because I was not strong in my mother tongue, at least writing part. Since I
Yeah.
chose to write in the beginning, I used to really find it difficult. You said you wrote something in Hindi and you revisited, right? I used to write in English and I will revisit for Tamil word. I used to even
Okay.
ask people. I
Okay.
was reminded of those days when you said all this. So it was interesting also.
Very insightful. You are very absolutely right. You have to think of the scene, and then think about, and then put in the dialogues and everything, and then put in
Yes.
the story in it. Yes, you have to
So
paint it. I would say
what comes first? Because each author has a different way of starting a chapter. So when you sit to write a chapter, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? Is it like the actual scene, or is it like the end of, like, how this is how I want this chapter to end? Or do you read your previous chapter and then sit and write the next chapter? How do you go about writing a new chapter?
see, in case of the Gymnast, I knew how I wanted to start it. So, in fact, the first chapter of that book I had already written when, in fact, my first book had gone for publishing.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew that how I wanted that particular chapter to start, the first chapter. Then I also knew how I wanted the book to end. And so thereafter, I had written the last two chapters, I would say. The last two chapters I had written. So that was those were the first chapters that I had written. Now, thereafter, I started setting down, or I started putting the story in between.
Mm-hmm.
And when I wrote, I would scene by scene or chapter by chapter. So I would finish a chapter. No, I would not. Mostly, I would not revisit the chapter earlier written. I would remember where I have ended it, and then I would keep thinking. Thereafter, I would keep thinking of how do I want my next chapter to start, where it should go. And so then when I sit down, I write my second chapter. I start writing my second chapter. My revisiting in my second book, the major challenge was that the characters were of a different age group. So, I had to be very particular about that I'm not miscommunicating the ages in subsequent chapters. So what I did was that I wrote down their year of birth in my diary. That okay, I mean, this gentleman is born or this lady is born in this year, this year, this year. So I would refer to that chronology or that timeline only so that I am not committing an error or committing a mistake. In fact, in my third manuscript, which is also complete now and should be ready, is ready to be sent out to the publishers or my literary agent. So there also I followed the same principle. But in the fourth one, what I have done is that I have written almost about 25,000 words. And thereafter, then I have sat down and I have written a complete synopsis of that manuscript. And now what I am trying, I am also evolving. I would say I am also evolving as I am writing more and more books. So in that, what I am trying to do is then I will fill in the synopsis with the scenes and everything. That's how I will be doing it. So, but in the Gymnast, no, my methodology is simple. I would write a chapter. I would then close it. If for a few days I am still not getting an inspiration for the next chapter, I would not write. I would not open my computer. I would keep thinking about it. And once I get that inspiration, maybe during my morning walk or maybe while sleeping, I'll come back and then start writing the next chapter. So that's how that has been my writing styles so far.
So when is your next book due, sir?
Just a second. I'll just skip to the next segment and we can continue this question in the next segment. This is a part of the next segment. So the next segment is called World of W's. World of W's is nothing but W questions like what, when, where, and all that. And this is like for our listeners to, if they were not able to sit through the entire session, they could just scroll down here and listen to this. It's like a gist of our entire conversation. So the answers can be crisp and they're going to be like, it's almost like rapid fire, if you want to call it that way. So yeah, the first question I think Ms. Jayanti just already asked. Can you repeat the question?
When is it? When is your next book due?
It's a painful process. So I had completed the draft of that manuscript. Once again, I had completed about a year back, and then I sent it to Lalita, and Lalita wanted. Incidentally, it's a crime thriller. It's a murder mystery. So different genre altogether. And so she has finally told me to once again she's very good at asking you to condense. So she has asked me to. So she has told me to condense it by another 10,000 words. Currently, it's about 79,000 words. I don't intend to follow her advice. I would still keep it somewhere around 72,000 words. So then thereafter, she will start sending it to the publishers. So, but then I would say that it should take maybe another 6 to 8 months for that to be coming out.
How, because this Gymnast is a series, a part of a series, when do you think the next book in this series is going to come, or are the two books connected, the first and the second, and how many other books you have in mind? Are they all connected to each other?
No, they are not. I'm still, I mean, the third one, the murder mystery is not connected to this in any way. See, initially the Gymnast I had actually named it as the street performers, and I had wanted to write the story of all the three siblings, all in one book. But then I realized that, it will not be doing justice to any of them if I write in a single book. So I divided into three. I thought of writing three series. So book one, this is book one. Book two could be about Deepa, the second protagonist, and book three could be about Pradeep, the musician. And so nothing is in the pipeline, but the fourth manuscript on which I am currently working, I am still in two minds whether I should merge the life of one of the protagonists with that another protagonist in that book, the fourth one that I am working. I am still in two minds on that. I have still not decided. Maybe I may not, because through that fourth manuscript, I want to raise another very serious subject. It's a rather serious subject. It is about adoption. And see, it becomes serious in the sense because adoption is still not considered to be a very
Normal.
it's not accepted by the Indian society, I would
Yeah.
say. It's not accepted by the Indian society, and even the child goes through a lot of trauma. Now, just revealing a bit, that story is about a child who is abandoned by his mother in a train compartment, and then from there it moves on. But I'm liking the crime, the murder mystery or the crime thriller
Genre.
genre. I'm liking it. Yeah, so I'm liking it very much. So I don't know. In between, I may write another crime thriller. I've created a character in my third manuscript. I created a character who is a detective. Something like on the molds of Sherlock Holmes or Poirot. So maybe, I don't know, but too much into the future, but yeah. So, yes, the series would definitely be coming, but timeline I would not be able to comment right away.
Where can the readers find your books?
My books are available on Amazon. The books are also available on the websites of the publishers. Like the first one is on Notion Press, and the second one is on Garuda Prakashan, Garuda Books. Apart from that, Flipkart also they are there. The Gymnast has not yet been converted into an ebook, so it's not yet available on Kindle. In due course, it will also be there on Kindle. So they are available on all the major platforms, and including the publishers' websites.
How long does it take for you to usually write the book? Not considering the editing or the publishing process, how long does it take for you to write a book?
About 4 to 5 months. It takes about 4 to 5 months, the first draft, and then it goes through all those iterations. But about 4 to 5 months is the normal time. Just elaborating it a bit, I was once hearing an interview of Jeffrey Archer, and I have spoken to many authors. Dhanya, you yourself, Jayanti, you yourself are authors, and so what he said, Jeffrey Archer said that for him now writing is a profession. It's almost like a profession. It's not a side business or something.
Yeah.
He says that every day he makes it a point that he will be sitting either on his computer or with his diary. There are many authors who still write on pen and paper. So he said that every morning he would dot at. He said that he explained his schedule that probably 9 to 11 he would say that 11 he will take a break, and then after lunch from 1 to 3 he will sit, then take a break, etc. But he said 6 to 7 hours he writes daily, and so that is the trick, that it has to be. You have to sit down on the computer and write something. Whatever, it may be just 10 lines, it may be 1 page, 2 page, but do write, get into that habit. So that is important for an author.
And how many edits do you usually go through? You personally, I'm not talking about the external editors of your wife or anyone. Just personally, how many edits does your book go through you?
Before I give it to my wife?
Yeah, before it goes to anyone else's hand.
Oh, I think 3. 3. Not less than 3. I would say not less than 3. But I would myself read it at least 3 times and get satisfied before I hand it over to print out to my wife.
Thank you. I think that's the end of the session, and we would like to know if you have anything to tell our audience, because most of them are aspiring authors and they come here to learn about the process of publishing by other authors and anyone who's connected to the publishing. So if you have any words to tell them.
The same message that I am conveying through my books: dream with your eyes open and pursue your dreams passionately. Because if you are passionate about anything, including writing, then you will certainly one day you will attain success. There is no doubt about it, and you should. Dreams are timeless. Dreams are ageless. I am 63. If I could write my first book at the age of 60, then anybody can do. And there is a message for the readers also, that I would like readers to read my book, not just my book, readers to read and also share reviews of whatever you have read, because that is the way for a continuous evolution of you as a reader and the author as an author. So that's my parting message.
And how did you feel about the session that you had with us?
It was wonderful. It was wonderful. I was not, it was very insightful, in fact, I would say. And, initially I had thought Jayanti had sent me, I felt that though she had sent me a set of queries, likely queries, but I did not go through them, to be very frank, Jayanti. I'm sorry, because I felt that an organic interaction is always better. You can think on the move, I would say, as you would say. So I loved the session. It's a beautiful show.
We always go organic.
Yeah.
But
that
but our guests, our guests
to have a
for because all our guests are different, right?
I know,
age-wise, experience-wise, expectation-wise. So what we follow is just let them have some idea if they really want it.
I know.
Like you, or even I would do that. I will ignore the questions, right? So just give it.
Yeah, but no, very insightful and very profound, I would say. And I loved.
Focused. The good thing about us is we are too focused on. We don't go deviate into. I started reading at the age of people start. We don't want all that. Everyone reads.
Yes.
Without reading, we are not becoming an author, right? So
exactly. Yeah, very, very important to read. So so let me ask you a question, Jayanti. What is the next book that you are working on?
I think I'll stop the recording and we can have an informal chat. I'm just stopping the recording.
Yes.